Hello, this is Darren.
And this is Paige.
And this is
Where's the Lemonade?
Where we talk about what happens when life throws you lemons.
Make some lemonade?
Maybe. Some weeks it's lemon squares.
Yeah, some weeks it's just lemons.
Yeah.
On today's episode,
We're going to talk about raising middle school aged kids in a blended family.
tons of fun.
Lots of fun. This episode comes as a request of some of our listeners who said, I have middle school age kids. What do I do with them?
Middle school age kids are hard anyway, but then when you add in a divorce and a remarriage and a blended family, it gets it's hard. Yeah. It's hard on the kids. It's hard on the parents. It's hard.
Now, you read an interesting statistic. The average age of kids of divorced parents when they get divorced was 11 years old.
Yep.
What a horrible time.
I know. That's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, we didn't have any 11-year-olds when we got divorced.
Julianne was 12.
Julianne was 12.
Right?
Just barely.
Yeah, she was 12.
So, yeah.
And Jacob was almost 13,
yeah,
almost
14.
So we had two middle school age kids when we blended.
Yeah, that was interesting. And middle school is an interesting time because I used to say the perfect age for kids, 8 to about 11. They were wonderful. They figured life out until, nature throws them hormones.
Yeah, and their bodies go through a lot. Poor kids.
They go through a lot.
They do.
And it's very difficult for them to understand all the emotions they're going through. They want independence. They can't have independence yet. They're not, ready for that. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics that happen in middle school with all this puberty going on all at the same time.
Yeah, middle school is just awful. It is. It's just awful. I mean, you're trying to figure out who you are, who you want to be, who you want your friends to be. I mean, it's just...
And kids that are a year older are 6 inches taller than you.
Right. Oh, my goodness. Well, so we have two middle schoolers right now and one that just started high school. So we have a 12, a 13, and a 14-year-old at home right now. And Sam is just about 6 foot tall. He's in 8th grade. And the 6th graders at the school are like 4 feet tall. I mean,
just barely 5 feet.
It is comical to see him walk by these other kids. It's just like, holy cow.
But remember, just 2 years ago, Sam was tiny too.
Yeah. I mean, he was never as tiny as some of these kids, but yeah, I mean, it's a big difference.
Huge changes going on, both physically, emotionally, hormonally. There's a lot going on for these kids, and since they're all trying to figure out who they are, it's a really tough time for most parents. And we know this because we've done this 7 times already.
Yes, we are now on 8, 9, and 10.
8, 9, and 10, and it is tough. And each kid throws us a little bit of a different curve.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And you know what? When they come out on the other side of this, they're just like, you know me, I love hanging out with teenagers. They're so much fun. So, and our kids are fun right now. I actually really enjoy hanging out with our kids right now, but they have their moments where, their bodies are just doing crazy things to them.
In fact, I remember, we were dating when Julianne was getting her hormones and everything was going chaos. And for me, I have 3 older boys, and then this princess arrives in our family. I don't know what to do with her. I could barely even do her hair. And as a single dad, that was tough on me. And how do I talk to them about, girl things?
Yeah.
And because I can't relate. I can't empathize with them.
Yeah, so, I remember being on the phone with you.
When I threw her in the pool?
Yes. And
because that works with boys.
Yeah, he was like,
I'll pick you up and throw you in the pool.
Yeah, he's like, hold on, I've got to throw my daughter in the pool. And I was like, excuse me? That's not cool. And you were like, what?
Yeah, we had fun.
It stopped her from throwing a fit. And I was like, oh, we need to talk.
Yeah. It always worked with the boys.
Yeah. Well, it worked.
Oh, yeah, it worked. And I'm sure, Julianne, I hope you remember that time. It was a great bonding time.
Oh, she remembers it. Trust me. She remembers it, yes.
Now, other things that kids are going through besides trying to understand themselves and their parents is friendships are starting to really form now and become extremely important, especially for girls at this age. And girls tend to hit their puberty a couple years earlier than the boys.
Yeah.
At the beginning of middle school, and the boys are just coming into it at the end of middle school. They start wanting to date, or boys and girls are pairing up and liking each other. Added on top of that, some things today that we didn't have with our first kids, which is social media.
Yes.
Cell phones, the internet access.
All things of the devil.
All things.
Let me put my social media away real quick.
Yeah, just a second. Let me tweet that real quick. But all that's a lot of extra pressure on these kids that are still trying to figure out who they are.
It is. It's hard. And that's why, I'm sure lots of people will disagree with us on this, but we do not let our kids have social media. Our 12, 13, and 14-year-olds do not have social media. I actually think it's kind of detrimental to their self-esteem, and they're already going through so much. And we both agree. We agree on this.
That's one thing where we agree, and
yes,
that would be important that you and your spouse actually agree.
Right. So our kids don't have social media at all. And I think back to our other kids. They did. I think like Julianne got Facebook when she was like 15, 16.
Yeah.
But never had Instagram, never, and that wasn't a thing.
Jacob refused to get on social media.
Yeah, Jacob and Dallin never had, they never had social media. So this is newer for us to have to deal with this because our older kids just weren't interested. Julianne did join, but barely. It's not like she was ever on it. Right. So it's certainly a big part of middle school age kids now.
Well, and even in middle school, even Sam will say all of his friends are just on their phones.
Yeah.
So lunchtime, can you imagine this? Lunchtime is dead quiet. That is bizarre to me because lunchtime in middle school for me was like mass chaos.
Yeah.
But now everyone's sitting on their phones, texting each other, or
they're playing games, they're on social media. Yeah, and it's hard we're also weirdos because our 12 and 13-year-old do not have phones, and our 14-year-old has
a flip phone.
She has a dumb phone, so it doesn't have any internet on it. So we're strange parents in that way, but we feel like this is what's best for our kids.
Yep, exactly. And it's been a little hard for our kids because they don't have them and all their friends do.
Yes,
but our kids have kind of stood up to them and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you at lunch."
Right.
So they're hanging out with other kids that will actually have a conversation,
right,
which is good. Other things the kids are going through in middle school, and whether you like it or not, it's in middle school now. Sex and drugs and alcohol and marijuana, vaping, all these things are there. And you've got to have good communication with your kids to talk about these things.
You do. All these things were there when we went to high school. In fact, sometimes I think the 80s were really full of that, right?
Yeah, especially sex.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. At our school, we had the druggies in one corner, and it was definitely around then. But it's almost like back then it was, those were the druggies. And now I feel like it's more mainstream.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was
more acceptable.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever. So which
is scary.
You have to talk to your kids about it. If you don't, their friends will.
Yeah.
And do you want a 12-year-old teaching another 12-year-old about sex? Probably not.
Right. Or social media where it will inform them
worse.
Right. So it is important. I know sometimes it's scary for parents to have these conversations with their kids. And I actually did research on this because I was so worried. You and I were talking about this, and I was like, I don't know if we should really go into details about these things with our kids because this is going to plant the seed in their head, right? So we looked up all these statistics.
And they said no.
No such thing. If our kid is not going to go do something because you told them, you talked to them about it and said, hey, let's talk about sex or let's talk about drugs and why it's important to not do this and And they said, never has a kid done it because their parents talked to them about the perils of doing it. So that made me feel a lot better that it's not planting the seed. It's,
maybe we should do a whole episode on how to talk to your kids about sex because
oh my gosh,
it was a great thing that happened here, and we'll have to save that story.
Oh my goodness,
on how we talked to our blended family about sex.
And older kids leaving the table because they were laughing too hard, and
the younger kids had great questions.
Yes, they did.
I don't think the older kids knew the answers to.
They were just shocked that the questions were coming.
Yep, it was. Watch for that episode coming up.
Yeah,
That'll be
yeah.
a good one. Other things that you need to instill in your kids is your faith and your virtue that you have.
And your values.
And your values. Otherwise, you're going to learn those things from social media or from other kids at school. So don't be afraid to talk to your kids about these things, even if you see the eye rolling or the, yeah, whatever, Dad, or Mom,
Right.
They're going to come back and remember those talks that you've had with them.
Definitely.
Raising middle schoolers is hard enough. Now add a blended family into the mix.
Oh, these poor kids and the poor parents.
Yes, us poor parents. And we actually interviewed our middle schoolers for this podcast. We wanted to find out what they were thinking.
Yes.
And the answers we got were what I kind of expected.
Some were expected and some were unexpected.
Yep. David's were expected.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
David's
12. They were 12-year-old answers.
Yeah, not exactly comprehensible.
No, yeah, typical 12-year-old. You can tell that the hormones are baking that brain.
Yeah.
Because he's thinking through things,
Yeah.
right? And then Malin mentioned things that I thought she would mention.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Going back and forth between homes is difficult, and 4 parents now, difficult, and different rules, double up, all these different things. And then Sam talked about how it's to be in a big family.
Yeah, how it's hard to stand out when you have other siblings that are, talented or, smart and this and that. And how do you, make your mark in this big blended family? And then he also talked about, it was very unexpected for me, but I'm glad he said it. He said that sometimes you don't know if you're feeling loved by your step-parent. If you're feeling like they might love their own children more than they love you. And I went, wow.
Yeah, very insightful.
And he said, when you're upset about something, you're already feeling bad about yourself. And then, you have an interaction with your step-parent and you just go, oh man, they like their kid better than they like me. And he said as he's getting older, he knows that that's not true.
Right.
But it's still, I think even now, it puts this seed of doubt in your head when you're upset or, something like that.
Of course. So those are things you have to watch out for. So this is really delicate where you walk, especially when you are a step-parent with a middle schooler. And I think a lot of times it has to do with how long you've been their step-parent when they get into this part of their life and what your relationship is with them. If, for example, when you first came in to Julianne's life, she was already she was 12.
Right.
So she was already going through the major changes in her life, plus divorce and all this. So how did you manage that? Because you're not her mom, and you didn't want to come in and take that role, but I really was lost. I didn't know what to do with her.
It was really hard. In fact, Julianne terrified me the most out of all of your kids, for sure.
Which is hilarious because she is the sweetest.
Oh, she is the most delightful, sweet. I just adore her in every way. But she terrified me, and she knows this. We've had this. She absolutely knows this. We had this conversation, and when you and I were dating, were we were engaged?
Yeah, we were engaged.
We were engaged just newly. I think we were newly engaged. Oh yeah, we were. We were newly engaged, and we were going to a church activity because you were involved. We were going out to the lake. You were involved with the young men and being a leader for them, and we were driving out to the lake. I was going with you, and all the kids were coming. And Julianne was, Julianne was throwing a fit. I have no idea about what anymore. And I didn't think you were handling it well.
I wasn't, because I didn't know what to do.
You were telling her that she was going to have to get out and walk home, and I'm going, oh no, he's an idle threat person. That's so not me. And so I'm just sitting there going, Joanne's screaming and throwing this fit and crying and yelling, and you're yelling back at her. And I am just sitting there going, I don't know if I can do this. And then David, who was 4, David started throwing a fit.
Oh, yeah.
And I seriously was like, I don't know if I want to take this on. I did. That was my biggest night of my concerns. So I remember we did the activity. We came back. I got in my car, and I took Sam and I went home.
Yep.
And you were really concerned that maybe I was gone for good.
Yep, I was. We called and talked about it, and I humbly asked you, I need help.
Right.
What can I do better with?
Yeah, you did.
With
You did.
Julianne?
You were.
Because you had already raised 2 daughters.
Yeah.
You knew what to do with daughters. I didn't. And for those of you people out there that don't think that boys and girls are different, you're crazy. They are very different, especially at this age.
Oh, yeah. Their hormones are so different and making them act differently. And yes, very, very different. Very different. So, yeah, that was a scary night for me. I went back and I remember I talked to my friend and we went out and just got a hot chocolate. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm terrified. And she kind of talked me down off the ledge. Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, thanks, Maria.
She saved us. And I called you and said, I'm a little freaked out right now, but I want you to know it's okay. I didn't want you to worry too much. And so until
I was very worried.
I'm sure you were. So anyway, but we talked about how we could handle these things going on, because I'm not a person that I won't let a fit go on. I won't
Well, and that's the one thing that I appreciated about you. When you talked to Jewel, when we talked about it, I liked your plan of attack, your plan of how to discipline, which is all about teaching.
Right.
Right. And you sat down with Julianne and myself. No, it was just you and Julianne.
I don't remember. It's been so long.
And you talked to her about the hormonal changes she was going through.
Well, yeah, I mean, I certainly didn't use the word hormones, because she would have been horrified that, this new lady in her life. But I just said, you know what? I know that this is a hard time of life, and middle school is the worst.
And sometimes you cry and you don't know why.
Yeah, you don't know why. And, you feel angry and you feel frustrated and you want to just rip on everyone around you. And I said, that is not acceptable. No matter what is going on inside your body, no matter what you're feeling, you can feel all of that and you can have all those emotions, but you are not allowed to take it out on your siblings or your parents or
anyone around you.
So
you the thing was when this happened, she went to her room.
You go to your room and you scream into a pillow, punch your pillow, whatever you got to do, and then come out and we can talk about it and, move on. But yeah, you cannot. We're not your punching bags, your emotional punching bags. And that's what was happening, is whoever was, in earshot was getting a...
So the thing I appreciate about this the most was that you addressed the real problem instead of just saying, stop the behavior.
Right.
You taught her what was going on. And that's what I really appreciate about it. She started understanding her own body better. She started understanding, hey, these emotions I'm having are caused because my body's being inundated with these new hormones that are coming in.
But don't use the word hormones. Okay?
Yeah, but don't use the word hormones.
I'm serious.
I know.
I'm not kidding when I say this. You can't. They will be horrified at this age if you say these.
But that these changes.
Yes, these changes.
But it took about 3 months of you and I just being consistent with her.
You have to be consistent is the key.
And you just, when she starts doing this, you look at her and say, not acceptable.
Not acceptable. Yeah. Head to your room and we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Sometimes she was up there in an hour.
Yeah.
Sometimes she went up there for 5 minutes, came down and apologized.
She always apologized. Because she is such a sweetheart and her nature is to be a sweetheart. Yeah. It was just her crazy body that was taking over her. And everything else that was going on. Her dad and mom got divorced and her dad's remarrying and so much was going on for all of our kids.
It was.
But, it affects some differently than others depending on their age. It really does. So,
I guess the main thing that we learned from this was consistency.
Yes. Every time they walk in and if they start letting loose, every time you say, I understand you've had a hard day. I understand you're frustrated. You're tired. Head on upstairs to your room, right? You don't need to yell. In fact, you shouldn't yell. You shouldn't get upset. Head on upstairs to your room. Come on out when you're done and let's talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, even with your own daughters, you did this.
Oh yeah, because yes, I had some daughters that were very emotional. Very
yes,
emotional.
I heard the stories.
Very
even
emotional.
to the point of removing doors off of
Yes.
bedrooms
Oh yes.
for slamming
yes.
doors and things like that.
My kids did know that I was serious. If I said I was going to take your door off, if you slammed it one more time, by golly, that door was coming off, and it did.
And it did. And so that's another great thing that I learned from you is the no idle threats.
No idle threats.
If you say you're going to do something, it has to happen.
Yes,
So
and to your detriment.
Yes, sometimes to your detriment.
Oh yeah, sometimes when you say if you keep this up, you're not going to have video games or TV for 2 weeks, and then they do it again, and you're like, oh man,
I got to entertain this kid.
What did I just do?
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, be careful because they know kids pick up on it so quickly. If you're not consistent, you're not serious,
They'll walk
they
all
know
over
it.
you.
Oh yeah. They'll walk
so
over
that's a key. Another interesting thing is that kids, they're trying to figure out where they fit in the world during this time. Now you add in there 2 families, right? And if both families are blended, look how many people are now involved, and they're just trying to find out how they fit in. So it's important that you understand that and find something special about them.
Definitely. I totally agree with that.
Because that's a tough time for these kids.
It is. These poor kids.
Yeah.
What we put them through, right?
Yes, and remember that you put them through this.
Yes. Whether it was you that wanted your divorce or your ex, you are as the adults, you put them through this, and you
have to be the adult.
You've got to be the adult, and you've got to try and put them back together again the best that you can and help them through these hard times.
And remember, your whole goal here during this time is to teach.
Yeah.
All right, so all your discipline that you do should all be a teaching moment, a way of teaching them how to deal with what's going on in their lives, because it's a tough time for them.
It is. Poor kids. All right, so now let's talk about survival tips. How do we survive these middle school years?
I think a lot of ice cream.
That is actually true. How many times do we go to Rite Aid? If people don't know this, Rite Aid, yes, the pharmacy store has really, really good ice cream.
Yeah, it used to be the Thrifty's 15-cent ice cream.
Yes.
Now it's like $1.15 or $1.50.
Yes, we used to stop on our way to the beach and it was like a quarter for us. Now I think it's still pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's still pretty
It's like
inexpensive.
$1 or $1.50. But anyway,
Ice cream.
Rite Aid ice cream.
Yep, it solves all problems, right?
Solves all problems.
So you take your kid one-on-one, or sometimes if you have more than one, all 3 of them.
Yeah.
You go get Rite Aid and everything calms down.
Yep.
You spend time talking to them.
Yep.
So I think the number one tip besides ice cream is probably demand and give respect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's really important to teach your kids.
If you call
how to
them
be respectful,
names, or if you yell at them, you're going to get the same thing back.
Yes. Don't name call to your kids, and don't let them do it to you. Do not let them do it to you, please. They need to learn respect, and you need to give respect.
Well, and that's in both ways. I think all the kids know if they said anything disrespectful to you, they would have to deal with me.
Right.
And that's a healthy love or fear. I don't know what you want to call it, but
I remember that. I'm sure it was that way in your home. In my home,
Oh, yeah.
if we even, kind of sometimes looked at my mom sideways, my dad would be like, "Hey, that's my wife," and we
That's
were like,
right.
"Okay."
Right, and same thing, right? You
Yeah.
don't let the kids talk disrespectful to me.
Yep.
And that goes by teaching, so by example.
Right.
Right. So we do our best not to be disrespectful to each other. The kids learn that they can't do that. So that's modeling it between us two. And then also when you're talking to your kids, they're starting to become adults or not adults yet. They will not thrive if you give them complete independence. You need to talk to them and teach them how and why there are rules and what they're going through. So
Right.
I think that's the number one thing.
So yes, give respect and get respect. You know what? I don't see it on our list here, but something really important is as a step parent, especially in these middle school years, especially if you get married, you're starting your blended family with middle school age kids.
Which chances are you will.
Yes, you have to step back. You can't always, like, even though you and I agreed on what we were doing with the kids and the middle school age kids, I did not
No, I had
enforce.
to take the lead with my
yes,
kids.
I did not enforce those things. You had to, because that's just not what they need at that time.
Now, it's different with our kids that we have now.
It is.
Because we've been married 8 years. So our 12, 13, and 14-year-old, they have known this way of life most of their life.
Yeah, they were 4, 5, and 6 when we got married.
Yeah.
So
they were already used to, I have 4 parents now teaching me, guiding me,
right,
and helping me.
It wasn't, oh, this is stepmom, oh, that's stepdad. It's just, this is the way it is. This is who, these are the adults in my life that are guiding me.
But this also leads to another potential problem, though. You may have fear in dealing with your children when
Absolutely.
they're doing something that's not okay, because you're like, well, if I put my foot down here and try and teach them here, but at the other house, at their mom or their dad's house, they're like, no, this is the party house. Then you have a fear that they will not want to be with you.
Absolutely. That is a real fear. And you know what, when we just interviewed the kids and we interviewed David, and we asked him, what are some good things about, a blended family? And he said, well, at one house I could be grounded. And he said, like I am here, like he's grounded right now at our house,
Right.
but he's not at his mom's. And so he said, the good thing is I can go, he's not allowed to play video games here until he gets a grade up. Well, that's not the rule over at his mom's. And so he, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
and so that gets hard for us because we're like, oh,
So I guess the thing here is do your best to have a good communication with your ex on setting up, common rules, common discipline if you can.
Yeah, if you can.
It's not always going to be the case.
It's not, because you both have different opinions. And now that you're not
otherwise we'd still be married.
Exactly. And now that you're not married, you don't have to agree with your ex's opinion.
Nope,
and so,
you don't.
even though she, they may say, okay, you can go ahead and ground him, but I'm not going to. There's nothing we can do about that, right? I mean, there's not.
No, there isn't. But don't step away from trying to teach your kids and disciplining your kids. Otherwise, this problem is just going to exacerbate itself worse when they're in high school.
Right.
Right. So now is the time with these kids to teach them and to discipline them.
Right.
And you have to do it in a kind and loving way, but don't step back.
But you're right. It's a real scary fear for blended families because, they're not going to want to come here because, this and that. But we still have to parent. And it's hard sometimes, but we have to parent the way that we are going to.
Yeah. In fact, we read something that said don't disengage when kids act out. It further contributes to parent-child discord. And
marital dissatisfaction.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I found super interesting.
Well, it's almost counterintuitive. Oh, if I just do whatever Johnny wants me to do, he'll be happy with me.
Right.
At this age, that is the opposite.
Right.
Right? They really want a parent more than a friend.
Right.
They want someone to teach them.
Even though they may not be exhibiting that.
They won't exhibit
right?
that.
But yes, I think in the long run, they will look back and say, thank you, for having those boundaries for me.
Yeah. The other thing on here it says is openly talk with your kids about their friends, find out who their friends are, about sex and drugs and what's going on at school. Openly talk to them about it. It doesn't mean share what you did in middle school or what you did in high school, but talk to them about what they're seeing and what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
Keep those doors open.
Absolutely. Even though you may get, how was lunch today? Good.
You have to ask.
Who'd you eat with? Someone. Some friends. I mean, and sometimes you're going to get those answers. We get those answers all the time. Yep. And sometimes it depends what mood they're in. They get, irritated if we keep digging, and sometimes they open up. But
you're much better at asking them that than I am.
Well, right. That's just personalities.
And they say, yeah, school was fun. All right. I'm okay with that answer.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, just a second. Who'd you have lunch with today?
Yeah.
Why are you grumpy today, right?
Right,
and
yeah.
so you do a better job
digging a little bit.
Digging a little bit. Another thing you brought up was don't pack a bag. So explain this.
Yeah, I was reading this article that it said when your kids are going back and forth from mom's house to dad's house, don't pack them a bag because it makes them feel like they're living a hotel lifestyle, a temporary lifestyle rather than a permanent lifestyle. And I thought that's super interesting. So we don't pack our kids a bag. I mean, we never have. Of course, we're also right down the street from each other. But there are certain things that we don't have two of. And so we have to stop and get those things from, the house.
But this ties into their clothes are their clothes.
Right. It was saying, do not put that pressure on your kids. It was saying some parents will say, the clothes in that bag that I just packed you, I expect every single article of clothing to come right back to my house. And I've seen this on the social media groups that I belong to about blended families. There's a lot of people that do that and say, whatever clothes I send, I expect to get them all back. You guys,
need to set your pride aside.
That is not, you're not putting that on your ex. You're putting that on your kid. Because guess what? Your ex is going, I don't care what goes back. And even if they do, your ex isn't going to go, okay, let's take a picture of everything that's in here. They're not going to do that. And your child is now having this responsibility of, am I getting everything that I'm supposed to have? And
you just put undue pressure on your kid.
You did. And so they said that's just detrimental to your child. So it said just...
What about when, David has no shoes here anymore? Because they're all over at his mom's.
That has happened.
Yeah,
in the summertime, he's been dropped off with no shoes on. And
because it's early in the morning.
Right.
And,
no, it's totally fine. And then we have to go, and then we're like, oh, you have no shoes here. And so then we have to stop over. But like I said, we can do that because we're close. So, it works out for us.
So you may have to spend a little extra money to get extra clothes.
And that's what it said. If you end up sending, you feel like you're buying more clothes than the other person, oh well. Shop at Walmart, shop at Target where it's not that expensive. Yeah. And I'm not saying that this isn't a big deal. I'm saying stop putting this pressure on your child.
On your kids.
This is undue pressure that they don't need. And they already have no control over so many things in their life. Let them have control over their clothes. These are their clothes. Let them.
And that's another thing that leads into here, which is they need some ownership and control over something.
Yes, they need something.
Right.
They need something.
Maybe their room.
Right.
Or whatever it is. They need to own something and feel some permanence and some roots somehow.
Right. So, yeah. So, fill their drawers with clothes at both houses. But like I said, there are going to be things like we're not going to buy 2 cellos, right? Of course not. So, so there are certain things we have to get back and forth.
And the best thing to do is just openly communicate with your ex and say, you know what, we're out of shoes here. Do you guys have extra pairs of shoes laying around there? Most of the time, everything will go fine.
Right.
And you go, oh yeah, we did. I was just, all right, can we pick some up next time we drop the kids off? Or whatever it is.
Yeah, you got to let those little things go. You do. You got to let those little things go.
Okay, another thing that you have on here, learn when to walk away from your middle schooler. Yes, I think I brought it up briefly. You do. You have to learn when they're in a foul mood, and it's going to happen, they may not be in the mood to talk right then. And you got to read those cues. And if they don't want to talk right then, just let them be. Let them be. I mean, if they're not, it doesn't mean that they're screaming or yelling or doing anything like that. But if they are just in a grumpy mood, walk away. Walk away. Let them have their space. As long as they're not being, disrespectful.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Just walk away, let them watch a show to decompress, let them have some time by them, let them go to their room, whatever they need to do for a while, 30 minutes, an hour, try again after that, but let them decompress, walk away. Don't keep pushing, right? No, that makes sense. Yeah. And then the last, probably the most important tip is that you and your spouse need to show a common front in front of the middle schoolers. That is for any parents. But yes, especially in a blended family, you've got to have a united front. The step parent and the bio parent need to have a united front. Yeah, that's probably the toughest thing to get. Yes. And that's not always, I don't want people to think that you and I agree on every little thing. We do not. No, we don't. But if you say something
You back me up, whether it's
I back you up,
ridiculous or
and
not.
I mean, I might be fuming, smoke's coming out of
I've
my
seen
ears.
smoke come out of her ears a
and I'm
couple
going,
times.
I can't
Yeah.
believe you just said that. And I'm like, Darren, can I talk to you?
Yeah.
And we go upstairs.
And then I already know, oh, man.
Yeah. And we go, and you've had to talk to me before. I mean, it's happened for both of us. And we go and we talk in our room and say, you know what, I don't think you handled that right. Or
It may not even be right away. It may
right.
be later.
Yes.
Right.
And sometimes we've had to backtrack with the kids. And don't be afraid to do that either. You can
You can tell your kids, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. And you should.
I
They
made a
need
mistake.
to see that parents also make mistakes and that they accept that mistake and say, you know what, I messed up. That's okay to say that to your kid. I shouldn't have said that.
Messed up, let's move forward.
Yes, let's move forward.
If you do that, do you think your kids will then be able to come to you and say, you know, Mom, Dad, I messed up?
Absolutely. Because if they think that you're this perfect, oh, they never make any mistakes, and they just think that I make mistakes, but they never do, they're not going to
I
want
always
to talk
thought
to
my
you.
parents were perfect.
And did you talk to them a lot?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, but I learned later on in life that they weren't. And then when I hit 30, I understood, oh yeah, my parents were really good.
Right.
And now that I'm 50, I'm like, holy cow, my parents are saints.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, I think that it's important that we show our kids that we're not perfect, that we apologize. I think that's harder for you than it is for me
Well, maybe it is.
to apologize to the kids. You're
Yeah.
easy at apologizing to me, but it's hard as an adult to admit to a child that you messed up. But
Yeah,
I think
probably
it's
shouldn't have talked to you that way. I was
Right.
upset.
I think it's important that they see that.
No, I agree. All right, for the Lemonade Moment of the Week, we've got a doozy for you this week. It comes from our daughter, Madeline.
Yep, she's gonna be a ventriloquist with the dog. I don't know how else to lead up to this.
So we were recording the kids on what it's like to be in a blended family. And we've had some issues with the dog, so much so, as you heard in our last podcast, we ripped all the carpet out of the downstairs of the house. We have new carpet squares in, and so far it's
Super
going
classy.
Super classy. It's going okay. But Madeline decided to get in front of the camera and pretend like the dog was talking on what it's like to be in a blended family.
To be a dog in a blended family. Oh, the trials.
Oh, the trials. It is pretty darn funny.
It is funny.
And our lemonade moment is that our daughter can actually joke about these things and is self-aware enough to be able to give that. You can see that video on our YouTube channel, and you'll hear the audio now.
About having siblings that go back and forth. Is that... Don't have a normal sleeping schedule.
Oh, Heidi, I'm so sorry.
One time I'm in one bed and then the other time I'm in another bed. It's very difficult.
This is so hard for you, Heidi. Heidi, your voice is so elderly.
Another thing is that Madeline's my favorite. She's not here all the time. And it's just really hard and embarrassing.
I'm sorry, Heidi. We'll try and make things better for you.
Thank you.
If you like today's episode,
Give us 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, Google,
and head to Facebook and like us,
and check out our blog at where'sthelemonade.org.
where you can leave questions and comments.
But most of all,
Go out and make some lemonade.
you betcha, baby. On our next episode,
We're going to talk about how to stay positive when you're being pelted with lemons.
yeah, that's a good way to put it.